So I have a problem. I get distracted easily in addition to my already busy life. So, in order for me to make progress in learning German, I know I needed to make things simple. Even in my book choices, I feel like I've always been simple because that's the only way for me to make sure I make progress, especially when I was making that crawl from A1 to B2. I don't know about you, but with me personally, I love learning with German textbooks, mainly because, well, this is because of the table of contents. I can have a guide on what else do I need to learn, or basically everything that I need to learn, and I can gauge how much further do I need to go. And most especially, it keeps me away from distractions, which has always been my main enemy. I know I'm kind of a doom scroller, especially when I get anxious. But with all the book choices online, how do we know which book to use? Can we use more than one book? And how do we schedule them or schedule working on them considering we all have our busy lives? Hello, ich heiße Francis. I've been learning German for 6 years on and off, and I believe I still have a lifetime to learn German. I don't plan to learn another language soon or ever. Here in my channel, I share tips, resources, as well as my own journey to help the both of us be accountable in learning German. Now, just a short disclaimer, here in my channel, I share things that I have found effective for me for learning German. Now, since I know that all of us have different learning styles as well as different personalities, you may find that some of the things I share here may or may not work for you, which is absolutely fine. Now, for years, I have researched and tried different learning strategies out there, and I only implemented those ones that work for me. But I would never know what would work for me until I tried them. I hope you will be able to find something that would work for you here in my channel, and if not, then just keep on searching. I presented 3 questions in the beginning of this video to help navigate and learn how to effectively use books in learning German. Whether you are living in Germany or in another country like I do, know that there is a lot of books that's available for you. And that could be really overwhelming. If you are a beginner, this might be really tough to navigate, and you might end up like me, wherein I ended up for 3 years not doing anything aside from online language school, just because of decision fatigue. To know what books to choose, first you need to know what are their categories. First, there are grammar books. I personally think that having the basics or like learning the basics of grammar is essential, as it can provide you a map that will open up your doors into more harder tasks such as immersion. Having a knowledge of grammar, German grammar in this case, is fundamental, as it can really be helpful in order for you to actually enjoy reading, listening, speaking, and of course, writing. I personally am a big fan of Grammatik Active, and it's that book over there behind me. And it is a comprehensive guide which is perfect for all learners of all levels. It offers a clear, simple explanation of German grammar in addition to a whole lot of exercises, but they're good practice, I'm telling you. This book is very straightforward. As for me, I just tried to answer 1 chapter every day. And if I was on vacation, I would only answer 1 page, and that's enough. I think a page would be, or a chapter would be just 2 pages, 1 for the explanation and then 1 for the exercise. And as you go on succeeding levels, it could be just 2 pages of the exercises, which is worth it. I like this book not only because of the clear, simple, concise explanations. I also get to pick up new vocabulary words. And whenever I see new words, I would just write them down on my Anki so that I can review them whenever I review my vocabulary words. Having a grasp of grammar help me understand how to form my sentences, and I would also know what does the sentence mean, which is very helpful if you're reading or trying to comprehend something. I just see grammar basically as a manual that providing me a guide on how words work. I know I mentioned that in Grammatic Active, the explanations are very short, very easy, concise. So whenever I would need more explanations, I would just go search it on YouTube, Google, or ChatGPT. But I've only done that probably just 1 or 2 times. So I initially used the Grammatic Active A1 to B1 and then switched to the B2 to C1, also Grammatic Active, and I got both of them from Amazon. Now, I wanted to say that I tried Immersion in the beginning of around A1 to B1 level. But sadly, that did not work for me, or at least I did not enjoy it because I still did not have a good grasp of the grammar that time. But now that I have a basic working map, I enjoy immersion now through watching TV shows, documentaries, series, what have you. Next, we have workbooks. Now, to apply grammar concepts, we need workbooks. Workbooks cover various themes such as travel, work, everyday life. Each chapter integrates grammar, vocabulary words, practical exercises, which all makes learning relevant and engaging. There are many workbooks available in the market, such as Mention, Netzwerk, Schritte Plus, Aspekte Neu, but I personally use the Mention series. Now, these workbooks also have subcategories, which are the Kursbuch oder Kursbuch, Arbeitsbuch oder Übungsbuch, and the Intensive Trainer. Now, some books already have the Kursbuch and the Arbeitsbuch together, and they come in with a CD wherein there you'll find the audio data and video files, which you need in answering the workbook. But there are also some books wherein they just come in with an app that you can download and everything's there, the answer key as well as the data files. I just use Mention Intensive Trainer and the Mention series Kursbuch. I did not have the Arbeitsbuch, and I feel like the Intensive Trainer already made up for that. Plus, I don't want to overwhelm myself with a lot of workbooks. So I got my books from eBay, which was secondhand, and because it did not come with CD, I was surprised that I was able to find the data files on YouTube. So with the Mention series being so old, I feel like it's still relevant because daily lives rarely changes, and it mostly talked about, like your everyday life in Germany. For the other books such as Aspekte Neu, Schritte Plus, and Netzwerk, I think they are available on Amazon and eBay as well. Now, you might be thinking, these workbooks already have sections discussing grammar, so why do you even need Grammatic Active then? Or why do I even need grammar books in general? Honestly, I find that the grammar sections on these workbooks to be very minimal, and I feel like Grammatic Active, or having a dedicated grammar book, has given me more opportunities to improve on my grammar. I mostly used workbooks in order to improve on my vocabulary, learn useful phrases, and improve on my listening. It's just hard to do those parts of the lessons wherein you need to do a role play. So whenever I do my online classes, we try to do that, or I try to do it, wherein both roles have to be myself. And the last category, supplemental books. I used supplemental books when I wanted to hone a specific skill, which was reading, listening, vocabulary acquisition, or a specific topic in grammar, such as prepositions. I mean, who here has personally been victimized by Verbien mit Präpositionen? I've always had trouble with prepositions, so I decided to get a book where everything is just about prepositions. When I was reviewing for the B2 exam and I was having trouble with listening, I also used a supplemental book for that. And I feel like that book has really helped me improve my listening. When I was doing my B2 level exam preparation, I think I used a lot of supplemental books, mainly because there are specific topics that I wanted to work on, as well as I want to make sure what I'm answering is similar to what will be presented for the exam, which explains why my supplemental books then were Elizabeth Training B2, Sogit, mit Erfolg, Deutsch Intensiv Wortschatz B1 und B2 und Deutsch Intensiv Hören und Sprechen. I actually did not finish a lot of my supplemental books because I just used them to refine some of the skills that I really need to work on. I think I was only able to finish the mit Erfolg, so geht's, and the Deutsch Intensiv Wortschatz B1 und B2, mainly because for the vocabulary, I really need those words in order for me to pass the exam, or at least understand the words that will be included in the exam. And as for the mit Erfolg and so geht's, of course, that served as a review of the exam itself. So I really needed to finish those. But honestly, even though I did not get to finish the Deutsch Intensiv Hören und Sprechen, I still feel like it has been really helpful in improving my listening skills, just because in that book, you will be tasked to listen to the same audio file over and over, but they will be asking different questions each time. I think I only used that to really just improve my listening skills. And once I was getting better scores, I just stopped it. As for the Lise Training B2, you know this if you watched my video wherein I gave y'all a breakdown of how I studied for the B2 exam. That was one of my regrets because I really wished that I really finished that book in order for me to have a better reading comprehension. But we'll see. I'll still gonna have another exam in the future, so I hope that won't happen again. And another thing, I categorize short stories and novels as supplemental books, mainly because they still work towards a specific skill, which is in this case, reading comprehension. It has been really helpful that I learned the fundamentals of grammar and just having a good foundation for the vocabulary words, because I really did not find reading short stories to be enjoyable in the beginning. I felt I was just looking for the meaning of the words, the meaning of especially the prepositions, connecting words. So I did not find it enjoyable. However, I was able to finish the short stories by Ollie Richards, but I only read that only when I'm done with the grammar books and my workbook right before I go to bed. So it served as like my leisure reading time. Is it really leisure in the beginning? I only read like just 5 pages at a time. I'm not really fond of reading stories or novels. I'm horrible, even in another language, or even in English or Filipino. It's just not my thing. I'm more into reading nonfiction themes such as biographies or self-help books. That's my thing. When I try to read leisurely, right now I changed how I was before, because before I was really searching for every word. Right now what I'm doing is I'm just reading it as how it is. If I pick up a word, if I understand it or not, it's fine, because in the future I think it would probably just make sense. Right now I'm reading Einfach Genial. I just really love nonfiction books. I don't know, probably just comes with my age. But even when I was younger, just really not fond of novels or short stories. But that's just me. If you feel like you want to read stories, then go ahead, because that would be beneficial for you. I bought most of my books on Amazon and eBay, and if there is secondhand available, I choose that, mainly because once I'm done with the book, I either just resell them or donate them especially that I'll be moving to another country. I feel like I just decided to keep the grammatic active eins to C eins. Now, let's move on to the second question, which is, can I use more than one book? Well, to answer that question, of course, dear. Well, yes, of course. You can use more than one book, and that could be even more than one book in one category. But know that the more books you use, the more there would be a risk of you getting overwhelmed, and it would take longer for you to finish a book. I just used books like how I was using a syllabus. It provided me with a roadmap of what I needed to study because you have that in the table of contents. I was just really learning with one grammar book and one workbook. And once I'm done with that and I was going through the review and I've learned which areas I still need to improve on, that's wherein I've added the supplemental books. I get overwhelmed easily, so this simple strategy just really worked for me. I did not get to finish most of my supplemental books, mainly because aside from getting overwhelmed, it was getting hard for me to schedule them. And I feel like I was able to work on the parts that I need to work on. Right now, I'm really trying to work on the supplemental book, which is a book about prepositions, because even when I'm speaking, it's hard for me to choose which preposition should I choose. I told you I'm a victim of prepositions. But if you feel like you wanted to have several books when you're learning, then might as well try it out if it works for you. Because again, different people, different learning styles. Now, how do we schedule working with German books? Now, we all know that it is consistency that can really help ensure that you will make progress, especially in this case if you're learning German. So it would be ideal for you to answer your books daily. Now, my normal schedule back then was I would work and then I would go home, exercise, eat, shower, and then answer my books. I would answer first a chapter of my grammar book, and then I would answer also a chapter of my workbook, and then I would review my vocabulary after that. And if I have some time, I would go to bed and just read 5 pages of the short stories by Ollie Richards. Did I remember that part? Not much. But know that I am really alert at night, so I try to schedule all my studying mostly at nights. But if you feel like you're a morning person, you can also do them in the morning. Which means that when you are going to be scheduling working on your German books, you have to take into consideration which time are you most alert, which time are you more compelled into learning, and also really learning to time block which time of the day will you be studying. For me, I aim to answer one chapter of the Grammatik Active and then one chapter of the mentioned series, and that kind of like took me 2 hours. I'm slow, I know. Now, I think the reason why it took me 2 hours is that whenever I encounter a new word, I write that down or I transfer it directly to my Anki. Writing down new words just helped me remember things, even though I only review them just once or twice. I don't know, that's just my learning style. And then throughout the day, when I have time, I just review these new words I put in onto Anki. Honestly, I don't review the past chapters that I finish. I don't know why, but I felt like by doing or answering my books every day, each chapter just served as a refresher, especially if I'm encountering new sentences. I really don't know how I was able to make progress since I was just doing that. Answering grammar book, answering workbook, reviewing new words through Anki. It was just like that throughout my journey from A1 to B2. And then when I decided to prepare for the B2 exam, I mostly just used the supplemental books mainly because the goal right now is to prepare for the exam. And sometimes as much as those chapters from my grammar and workbooks are helpful, I think it's wise to really practice what's gonna be shown on the test. And I feel like Mitefolg and Sogits was able to give me a good picture on what I will be expecting on the exam. With these two books, I just try to answer one part, either reading, listening, speaking, writing per day. After I finish one chapter or one part of those books, I will then be using the Deutsch Intensive Wortschatz, and I would also just review an entire chapter. I think doing that also took me 2 hours, which was good because I already finished the grammar books and the workbooks. I don't do that anymore. I was just really concentrating on the supplemental books at this period. I only used the Lisa Training B2 on weekends, and then I added in the Deutsch Intensiv Hören und Sprechen when I was starting to notice that my listening was not going anywhere. I think it still worked though. And as I've mentioned on my previous video, I mentioned that I was flexible with my schedule when I was preparing for the exam, mainly because I was trying to concentrate on working my weaknesses. Just feel free to really change up the books that you're using depending on what your goal is. When I go to bed, I just try to read something, whether it be that short stories, just the 5 pages of the short stories I mentioned a while ago, or news articles. But this time, I try not to search the new words that I find. I just try to read them. If it doesn't make sense, fine. If it does make sense, then good. Sometimes it's just really refreshing to read something where you don't feel any pressure at all. Honestly, I realized I'm not the type of person who can learn words, grammar through immersion. And so I'm just happy about those books I mentioned a while ago because they provided me with some sort of scaffolding in order to build a good foundation in learning German. My learning strategy is that I needed to understand what's happening first before I go on and immerse, because if I don't have a manual of how the words work, it doesn't feel enjoyable to me. I would just feel overwhelmed and curl in a ball and forget my goals. Trust me, I tried that Harry Potter immersion, which I've seen on some videos that has been proven effective in picking up vocabulary. And I even showed a video of me before that I was trying to read that because it's one of the most recommended ways into building up your vocabulary as well as immerse yourself. Trust me, I tried that. It was not enjoyable for me at all. It was just probably not my learning style. Also, I'm really not fond of repeating books that I've read before, even in another language. But it doesn't mean that I don't like Harry Potter. I'm a Ravenclaw, by the way, but I really want to be a Slytherin. I don't think it's gonna happen. Right now, I like reading nonfiction books, biographies, things related to minimalism, overconsumption. I know this is showing my age, but yeah, I'm interested in things like that. That has made reading for me very enjoyable, which means that if you are going to choose something to read, especially for pleasure, stick with the things that you like. Because no matter what other people say to read this and that, because if it's effective, if it's not enjoyable, it's not gonna be helpful at all. Well, if you like Harry Potter and you feel like you're okay with repeating it, then go for it. I'm actually slowly diving into language immersion now, which I now find enjoyable compared with before, thanks to the foundations given to me by my grammar book and my workbooks. If you find this video helpful, please like and subscribe for more of my German learning adventures. And if you have other books that you have found helpful or just any tip in learning German in general, feel free to write them down in the comment section below. You have no idea who you could help by doing that. I honestly have gathered some of my learning strategies just by reading the comment section. I guess my takeaway from this video is that books can really help propel your language skills, but they require consistency. So it's important to not get overwhelmed with your resources. So just take what you need and what you are interested in, at least in the beginning. And also, these books could be really expensive. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll be seeing y'all next time. Tschüss! Ich bin sehr froh, weil ich eine Antwort von der Bundesagentur für Arbeit bekomme. Und so, diese Bürokratie finde ich, als ob ich in einer Achterbahn bin. Also,